Hello and welcome everyone to Tandem Presents. I am April Thomas, and today we're speaking with author Michelle Jones, who is going to be telling us about her life story, her exciting life story. And Michelle, how are you doing? How's your
I
day
am
been going?
fantastic. I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm hanging in here. How have you been thriving through this pandemic?
Actually, I've been doing very well. Surprisingly, I am one of the ones that has kicked off a new business during the pandemic, and
Good.
actually wrote another book during the pandemic, and so
What?
I haven't slept during the pandemic. I've used this time to be able to be a little more creative.
Good. So you wrote another book. So how many books do you have so far?
I actually have four books in the marketplace to date.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so the book that we're talking about today, forgive me the title. So whenever I think of the title, all I think about is the stilettos.
Yes. Most people think about that. Walking on water in my stilettos. That's
Stilettos,
actually
yes.
my second book.
That's your second book. So what's your first book?
Yes. My first book is Grasping Your Success: 6 Steps to Starting and Legitimizing Your Business.
Oh wow, that's good. That's a good one. Especially now, because there's a lot of people who started a business and they just don't know what to do or where to go with that. So that's a much needed information right now. So tell me
Yes.
about your book, Stilettos. That's I'm calling it Stilettos. Sorry.
This book, if I'm being totally transparent and honest, I didn't want to write it.
Well, yeah, I can understand that.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to write it. God gave me the assignment to write the book, and I was like, now, I'm a church girl, and I can't be putting my business in the streets like that.
Yeah.
Folks in church would have too much ammunition to be trying to use against me. So
True.
that'll be a no.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
But as you can see, I wrote the book.
You did right. Yeah. Well, there's that saying, man plans and God unplans. So.
That's it. But what I didn't realize when I was writing the book, or when he gave me the assignment to write the book, I did not realize that there was a season of healing that the book would take me through that
Mhm.
was necessary for me to move to the next level that he had for me. And so sometimes when God moves and tells us to do something, if we can't see the other side of it, then we don't
Mhm.
want to do it. We want him
Right.
to show us what the other side is going to look like so that we'll have something to focus on. But in
Right.
essence, what he was saying to me is just trust me. I got you. I got you.
Mhm.
I got your story. I got the book. Just do what I told you to do.
Yeah. So tell me, how did that journey go for you writing this book? The experience um I know it's hard to write something like this and it's so deeply personal. How did you get through those hurdles each day writing things that, were just hard to put into words?
Well, it really wasn't. I'm a
Mhm.
wordsmith. So it's
Okay.
very few times that I don't know what to say. It's very few times that I'm left speechless.
Okay.
Um, I actually wrote this book in 3 weeks.
Okay. Okay. I did that. I did that with my first book too. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
when it's
and so it was
that's
just me and
definitely God.
God.
Yeah, that's
I I
definitely God.
I
Mhm.
woke up, I wrote, I ate, I wrote, I went to bed, I got up, I wrote, I ate, I wrote, and I did that every day for 3 weeks. And that was my total focus. Every waking moment that I had, and that third week I had to go back to work because I was off work for 2 weeks for my vacation.
Mhm.
And when I went back to work, the minute I came home, I
Right.
was back writing until 11, 12 o'clock at night. Go to bed, get up in the morning, do some writing, get ready for work, go to work, come back home, back to writing until the book was done. And
Wow.
what it did for me during that period of time is it showed me that writing is really therapeutic. If
Mhm.
people would just really give themselves permission to put it down, because it needs to go somewhere. All of that
Mhm.
stuff that we're carrying around in our hearts and our minds, it has to go somewhere.
Mhm.
And by writing it, you're giving it a release. You're
Right.
giving it the ability to leave. It's no longer taking up space in your heart and mind anymore. You're releasing it.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
needed to release that story because I was starting to allow the story to define me.
Mm.
And you cannot allow the stories to the events in your lives to begin to define you, because you are not what you've done. You are not
Right.
what you're dealing with. You are who God said that you are.
Amen. You're the only other person so far, like I said, the first other person I've ever heard say what I say. I'm like, I'm hearing what you say, what I tell other people. I wrote my first book in 3 weeks. I wanted to do nothing else but write. I got up, wrote. I wrote until I couldn't see, until I was cross-eyed, went to sleep, got up. I didn't even want to eat and drink, but you have to, or you pass
Right.
out in writing. And I finished my book in 3 weeks. And for me, that confirms to me that it's definitely God behind that. Because the way that it came on, the urge and the sensation, it came out of, for me, it came out of like nowhere. I'm just relaxing, having a normal life. Everything's cool. And then this urge to write this book. And it's a story that I wrote when I was in middle school and I had put it down. So yeah, and I write fiction, but yeah,
That's
I
my
can really
next
relate with that.
journey.
Oh, really?
That's my next journey. My next journey is to write a fiction book.
Mhm.
I'm still playing around with it. I am also a writer's coach and a publisher. And so
Mm.
I work
Oh,
with
nice.
authors to help them develop their
Mhm.
stories and to write their stories. And then
Right.
if they want me to, I publish their books for them. But the one
Right.
thing that I've been able to do is a lot I do a lot with non-fiction writers, but I also do children's books and fiction writers. I'm
Mhm.
venturing off into
Okay.
urban fiction, so I'm starting to step into that
Oh.
arena. And so one of the things that I have really fallen in love with is character
Mhm.
development. And what I
Mhm. Mhm.
realized is character development for a fiction book is not much different than the characters that you write about in a nonfiction book. The only
Right.
difference is you writing about real people. Over
Right.
here,
Right.
you may be having real people, but you're changing the name and the personality to protect the innocent, so to
Mhm.
speak. But
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to develop those characters, and then the characters will tell you the story. You don't
Yes.
have to fight to write the story once you
No.
develop your characters. And
Yeah.
so I've kind of fallen in love with that aspect of it. So my
Mhm.
next book, after these, I've got two anthologies that I'm going to be kicking off this year. After I
Mhm.
get done with those anthologies, then I'm going to sit down and we're going to tackle the fiction. And I just want
Okay.
to do it so I can prove to myself that I can do it.
You could
So,
do it. You could do it.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, you can do it. Fiction is fun. I'm actually because I published my first book in 2009, and I knew nothing. Um, it did, and it had a rough start because I knew nothing. I had to learn everything about self-publishing, writing. Period. I had no one around me that even could point me in the right direction.
same
And
here.
yeah, so like now I'm going through a revision of it. I decided to go back and look at my earlier publications, and I'm actually going through, and I'm loving it because I've grown so much as a writer. So now when I used to go back and look at it years ago, I couldn't see the mistakes because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know the people to really break it down and explain it to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm having fun with it. I love it. I love it. But yeah, that just confirms to me that it was definitely God because we have the same story, just that you wrote nonfiction and I wrote fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah. So tell me, I mean, I see the passion behind your book. Tell me about your passion for writing.
I've always written. As a kid, I had horrible asthma. Where
Hmm.
And back when I was growing up, they didn't encourage individuals that have asthma, to go
Hmm.
play and to expand your
Right.
lungs and all of that. It was, you need to go sit down and be still somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would spend anywhere from a week to a month in the hospital in the
Wow.
between the springtime and then fall into winter.
Wow.
So the major changes to weather was my triggers, because
Right.
I had a lot of allergies that were outdoor allergies.
Right.
And
Right.
if we didn't have a good freeze that winter, that means
Hmm.
that my fall would have been horrible, and I would
Mm.
have pneumonia, strep throat,
Mm.
all of that, ear
Mm.
infections,
Mm.
sinus infections, all of that. And so, because I spent so much time in the hospital and I spent so much time by myself,
Mhm.
I would write, I would journal, because I was upset. My mom wouldn't let me go outside and play. I had to take all this medication. And my bedroom window
Mhm.
was facing the front of her house. And
Mm.
our street was not necessarily a busy street.
Mhm.
It was like a neighborhood street. And so
Mhm.
you could see the kids riding up and down the street on their bikes, running up and down the street,
Mhm.
hollering, playing and all of that. And I remember writing in my journal how much I hated my life,
Hmm.
because I was stuck in the house. And
Yeah.
that started my journey. But
Mm.
then, as I started growing out of it when I was in my early teens, um,
Mhm.
my writing changed. It changed, to start being about what teenage girls go through and all of that. And so I have always written. That has always been a passion of mine. That was how I would voice how I was feeling. That was, instead of going and talking to somebody, I had learned how to self isolate
Right.
from being such a sickly child. And
Mhm.
so, which is not always a good thing, but
Mm-mm.
it was what I had learned to do in order to deal with what I had to deal with my asthma.
Mhm.
And I didn't grow out of that. Once you start doing that, it's very hard to break that.
Right. Right.
And so I had to learn how to break that. And sometimes I catch myself doing it now, and I have to say, Michelle, now look, you go be amongst some real people, you know, don't because I'm okay in my own company. I am
Mhm.
fine, and I love me some Michelle,
Yeah.
and me and Michelle can hang out all the time. We don't have no problems. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where my passion for writing came from.
Mhm.
I never thought, when I was writing, journaling, and all of that, because when I was in college, I actually, the very first paper that I had to do A style,
Mhm.
my instructor tore my paper to shreds.
Ah.
I had so many red marks and blue circles and comments, and my whole heart was broke. But
I
what
know
he
that feeling.
taught me, without
Yeah.
understanding it, was that I couldn't write like I talk.
Mhm.
When you
Mhm.
write, it's totally different than what you talk. But however, when you journal, you write like you talk.
Right.
And
Right.
so it was through him, because I'm one of those ones. I need you to explain what all these red marks and all of this stuff on my paper. And he began to show me what he meant by all of the marks that he put on my paper. That was
Mhm.
the only time he put all those marks on my paper,
Oh wow.
because I was determined it was not to happen again, because me and red markers on my papers, we were not friends. And
Oh
so
wow.
when I wrote my first book, and I
Mhm.
wrote that because at the time I was a business coach, and I got
Mhm.
tired of saying the same thing to my clients all the time.
Right.
I was
So now you just say,
repeating
"Here, read this
myself
book."
consistently. It was
Yeah.
like crazy. I was like, I just need to put it on a record player and just let it keep playing,
Yeah.
because I'm
Yeah.
telling you guys the same thing, and for whatever reason you're not getting it. And
Yeah.
so that was my first foray into writing. And I did not realize at the time that there would be three more books after that. And
Mm.
so that was something that I think God said, okay, now you're ready. We're gonna put this first book out here for you to kind of get
Mhm.
used to it. Because like you, I didn't have anybody to walk me through the process. I self-published. So I had me and Google
Yeah.
had long
Yeah.
nights and conversations for me to understand the process. And so we went through
Oh
that.
yeah.
And so when I put out the Walking on Water in my Stilettos book, um, I had learned more, and I didn't have anyone that looked like
Mm.
me to advise me on how to put this book out in the marketplace, how to market the book, how to
Yeah.
identify my ideal reader, and to
Yeah.
tap into my community of readers. I didn't have anybody to show me any of that stuff. And so I began to
Yeah.
learn that process all on my own. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was when God had me switch from being a business coach to a writer's coach so that I
Mhm.
can begin to share with other people the things that I had learned, because I don't want another person of color, another African American, black, whatever you want to call us, put
Mhm.
another book out in the marketplace that's full of grammatical errors, sentence splices, structural issues, developmental issues, none of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
stepped into that arena, and I've been working with authors now for about 3 years.
Oh wow. That's good. That is good, and it's true. Urban fiction is a really the stories are really good. They are really good. And I when I was looking into I don't write urban fiction. I don't know what genre. I always say visionary fiction or I don't think this is actually a thing, but I'll say like spiritual warfare would probably be if that was a genre, that would be my genre. Um, but what I love about urban fiction is the stories are really good. There's a lot of African American authors out there that got some good stories to tell from all walks of, it doesn't matter. They got some good stories to tell and they're really good storytellers. And yeah, the one thing that we end up lacking is good editors or
Yep.
so, some, and a lot of people fall into the trap of, oh, well, I got it edited. And it comes to find out that it really was not edited. It was proofread.
Yeah, and
Like
there's a difference.
there's a difference. Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because that's one of the things that I started out doing before I actually started coaching is
Mm.
I'm a developmental or structural editor. So
Right.
I'm
Oh
the
yeah.
one that be cutting up folks' papers and books.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that
Yeah.
I can help. And then when I started realizing what was going on with some of the manuscripts that were being
Mhm.
presented to me to edit, that was when God started speaking, you need to coach them. And so I
Mhm.
actually have a program that I do called the Authors Book Camp. And it's a
Mm. Okay.
31-day program where I actually work with authors to write their books in 30 days. And not
Okay.
only do I help them write the book, I teach them the business of
Mm.
behind writing, because there's
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
business to writing. It's not
Yes,
just
there is.
about writing the book, there's a whole business behind it. And so
Mhm.
we talk about that. And one of the most important things that I teach them is the importance of editing. You need to
Right.
edit, you need to learn how to self edit, and then you
Mhm.
need to hire a professional editor.
To go
Because if
behind you.
you
Yep.
learn how to self edit and use the tips and the tools that are available to you, then you
Mhm.
won't have to pay as much for a professional editor to edit
Yes.
your book.
Yes. Yes. And that's something that I had learned the hard way. And that's why I'm actually going back now and revising all of those earlier books because I would send it to get to an editor, but they had a hard time editing it, and it would still after they're done still had a lot of mistakes. And but me not knowing, I'm not going to see the mistakes because I don't know. I didn't have the knowledge yet.
Right.
I didn't see it right off the bat, and they're probably cross-eyed after they were done with my book. Poor things. So I can't get mad at them. You know what I'm saying? And like my first book was edited numerous times. Actually, I should say proofread numerous times, and it still had a lot of errors, and it needed structure. It needed the story was good, everything flowed good, but I personally think what always bothered me was like the first three chapters. They were good, but what I learned is I was telling the reader what was going on instead of showing them. And it's something I should like. It's such a huge difference in your writing when you start showing and not telling. So yeah, so I started going back over, and I'm like, wow. And all I could think of is these poor people. They really tried. I'm not mad at not one of them. They really tried.
Well,
So.
that's it. That's important about having, because going the journey that I've gone,
Mhm.
I did not see myself as becoming a publisher.
Right.
I didn't even see myself being a writer, if I'm going to be honest. I
Right.
didn't see that. But after I wrote the first book, it was like a done deal. And
Right.
so I experienced all of the growing pains that authors experience, especially starting out. And
Right.
you're not understanding why your book is not being as successful as you thought. You're not
Mhm.
understanding why this isn't happening. Why is her book going flying off the shelves and mine is just sitting there?
There's a
Going through
reason.
all
Yeah.
of that. And so
Mhm.
God took me through a transition from
Mm.
all of the books. So the
Right.
last book that I published in 2020, I actually did that with an independent publisher because I wanted to see what the process looked like.
Right. Right.
I wanted to see what was the difference between self-publishing and
Mhm.
publishing with an independent publisher. And
Mhm.
so as I was going through the process with her, I realized that the process isn't that different. The
Mhm.
only difference is the amount of money that you put out up front and that
Mhm.
you get these services that you would normally contract on your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the monies that you pay would automatically cover those expenses and the expenses to publish it. But
Mhm.
even with that, I have learned additional things that God had moved me to a position to actually take a course to learn
Mhm.
how to be an independent publisher.
Mm.
And it was probably one of the best investments that I've ever made.
Wow.
Because I'm a firm believer that just because I'm an author does not mean that I stop learning.
Mhm. Yep.
You have to continue learning.
Yes.
And I believe that in the same way that I'm an independent publisher, every author can be an independent publisher, even
Correct.
if they only publish their own books, because
Right.
there are opportunities that are available to you as an independent publisher that is not available to you as a self published author.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. My book, Desperate Housewives of Biblical Proportions, is the book that
Mhm.
I put out in 2020. It just won a literary award,
Oh
and I was
wow.
notified in December. Um,
Wow. Mhm.
I wouldn't have been able to go after that literary award had I not been published by an independent publisher.
Didn't know that. Oh, you did? I remember. Yeah. Okay. So you're saying there's something with when you become an independent publisher, when you go to apply for a contest or enter your book into a contest, they won't. I got it. So it's better to
They
come
will
from.
recognize your book
Yeah.
and put it up for the award. Whereas some of these literary awards, if you're not published by a publisher, if you
Mhm.
are self published, they
Mhm.
will not even accept your book. Then now there are
Wow.
some awards that are strictly for self published authors, and
Mhm.
there's some awards that will take both published and self published books. But
Mhm.
the ones that have the standing in the literary community
Mhm.
will not. You have to be published by a
Mm.
independent publisher in order to get those literary awards.
So there, I just came across a new goal for me.
And so it's
Wow.
really about you telling your story
Mhm.
and then putting your story out there with these, because not everybody's going to win. Okay, not
Right.
everybody's going to win, but in a category that I was in with the Desperate Housewives book, I was one of over 500 books in my category.
Wow. Wow.
Only the top 5 books won awards.
Wow. And what you won first or second or what did you win?
I was the first finalist.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
you had first place, you had second place,
Mhm.
and then you had 3 finalists, and I was
Okay.
the first finalist.
Ah, okay. Okay.
And so,
Nice.
you get your little sticker to put on your cover of your book and all of that.
Yeah.
However, what it does is
Yeah.
it opens you up to be able to
Mhm.
experience other things, because there's some people that will only read books that have literary award insignias on it. There are
Right.
some people that will
Yeah.
only read bestsellers, and so now
Right.
it's almost like your literary community has now validated you as an author.
Right.
And now
Right.
more doors are available to be open to you if you decide to run with that. And
Mm.
when I first started the book camp, I
Mhm.
worked with 2 authors to help them write their books in 30 days.
Mhm.
Both of those authors won literary awards.
Wow.
I edited and coached an anthology.
Mhm.
That anthology won a literary award.
Okay.
So I'm not saying that to toot my own horn, but I'm
Mhm.
saying that when you get the right people in the right mix,
Mhm.
and you listen to your coach,
Mhm.
there's nothing that's impossible to you.
Wow. Okay. So, where can we take this course?
My course is my website is Michelle P is in Paul Jones.com,
Okay.
and it's called the Author Book Camp, and it's on there. I
Okay.
just literally just uploaded the video
Mhm.
to Podia, which is my platform that I'm
Mhm.
using. And so the way that the courses operate is you watch the video, and then we do
Mhm.
weekly meetups because you have homework. And we
Right.
do the weekly meetups, and we talk about the things that you've learned during the course. I answer any questions that you may have. And I
Mhm.
have yet to have a person that took my course that has not written their book in 30
Mhm.
days, if that was what they
Mm.
wanted to do.
Right. Right.
And I've done children's books, I've done fiction book, and I've done nonfiction books.
Okay, that's
Normally, the
awesome.
nonfiction takes a little longer than 30 days,
Yeah.
as I have to make sure that you've developed your characters. And sometimes authors don't understand the concept of developing a
Mhm.
character. They just
Mhm.
want to write the story.
Right.
But
Yeah.
the same way in a movie that you
Mhm.
see the character come to life in a movie, you've
Right.
got to make that character come to life on the pages of that book, so that
Exactly.
people will not put it down. They'll be glued like, oh my God, I need to go to bed, but I'm afraid I'm going to miss something in this book. I can't put it
Yeah.
down. So,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Huh. Okay. Um, yeah, I'm definitely interested in that. I'm also interested in becoming like an independent publisher. That's interesting because I never. Yeah, that's where I think a lot of self-published authors should consider that seriously, even if they
I'm
don't join the
actually
contest
kicking off that training in March.
in March. Okay, I
Yeah.
definitely want to get in on that one. Yeah,
Yeah, I will be
definitely.
kicking that training off in March. And anybody that's interested, it's called Tips, and I'll be having that information on my website probably within the next week.
Okay.
And it's training for independent publishers, and it's just called Tips. So it's the
Okay.
Tips training. Um, and that particular training, I take you through everything. I
Yeah.
teach you how to start the company, how to create your team, how to
Mhm.
format books, how to do all of that. So you
Mhm.
get all of the inside information. We talk about the different organizations that you need to be a part of. We talk
Mhm.
about industry standards. So I'm not just teaching you how to self publish.
Mhm. Mhm.
I've taken the self publishing because I train authors how to self publish if that's what they want.
Mhm.
but I've taken that training and I've given you everything. So you get everything that I do in my publishing company, you
Mhm.
get it. I show you how to
Okay.
market.
Mhm.
I give you the tips and tools on what I call as author aftercare. Now
Mhm.
that I've written the book, now
What
what?
I do? Yeah.
Because
We live in a world that glorifies wickedness. It's so easy to be bad. It's easy to make excuses for poor behavior as if no one is watching. But what if someone is watching? What if not just someone, but a whole invisible world of people, of judges, watching and observing, and they were able to see the destruction of our future based on our actions, our choices? Would we continue to make the same poor choices if they were used against us? May Gordon has been violated repeatedly by our world, but through the eyes of the unseen, she is a hero. Despite all that is thrown at her, she never allows negative energy to remold her into its liking. She remains indestructible.
Yeah.
now authors get stuck. What am I supposed to
Mhm.
do now? The book is out there in the market and I didn't put all this energy into it. What do I
Nobody
do with
buying it.
myself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you have a baby, the baby is born, they done turned 18, they're off to college, and now you empty nesting. And what do I do
Yeah.
with myself now?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we take them through the process of what I call author aftercare so that
Mhm.
they know how to continue the momentum and still experience the success that they want to have in the marketplace. And it all
Right.
starts off with a strategic plan. And so we go through what that strategic plan. So with the tips training, there's actual workbook that you get with the tips training. So
Mhm.
each week you'll get the pages for that particular lesson, and I'm doing them in
Mhm.
modules. So you'll
Okay.
have basically 5 modules. You'll
Mhm.
have an intro, modules, and then the conclusion, and then
Mhm.
that's yours to keep. And you
Okay.
have all of the documentation that I use. You get
Mhm.
everything so that when you get finished with the course, you
Mhm.
should have already started your independent publishing company.
Okay. That's what I need. Yeah, that's what I need. So you're gonna start that in March.
I will start that in March. You'll hear some more about it. I'm finishing up a couple of projects that I need to get published.
Mhm.
So that's why I put it off until March because I got like 2 books in February that are being published up under our publishing company. Um,
Mhm.
and so I when I started looking at this, and I was actually talking because I actually have a coach.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
was talking to my coach, and I was telling her, I was like, God is really leading me towards this. And she said, out of everybody that was in the class, I knew you'd be the one to start teaching people what it is that you've learned and then take it to another level. Because I
Yeah.
really believe that I can publish your book. Trust me, I have no problems taking your money and publishing your book.
Mhm.
But I am of a mindset that if I give you a fish, I have to feed you for a lifetime. But if I
Mhm.
teach you to fish, I can
Mhm.
teach you to fish and then I can support you in your efforts.
That's my say. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I completely agree. And that's why I would rather. I've had a lot of authors. Oh, you publish for me. I'd rather you do. I'd rather show you how to do it
Right.
than me just doing it. Yeah, I'd much rather that. I think there's so much more value in it. So yeah,
It
I
is.
completely agree with
It's
you
a
on that.
lot more. And what you'll find in the process is just as a quick caveat to it,
Mhm.
if you learn how to format a book, you'll never be without work
That's true.
ever,
That's true.
because that is the one thing people don't want to do.
Yeah. 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 It's tedious.
It's very tedious. However, if you learn how to format, Not only do you format your own books and don't have to pay anybody,
Mhm.
but you also have the opportunity to do those consulting
Mhm.
services for other
Mm.
people
Right.
that don't know how to do it or don't want to know how to do it. And then
Yeah.
they pay you for you to do it for them. And that's a whole nother stream of income, even though you may not have published their book.
Right.
But
Right.
that's an income coming into your independent publishing company that you otherwise would not have had you not gone through the training.
Right. Okay. Well, see, I didn't even expect to learn all this in this interview. I thought I knew a lot. I didn't know nothing.
You know, we all are in that learning process, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
really about, I want to educate our community.
Mhm.
I like I said, if you want me to publish your book, honey, Bledsoe Publishing would be more than happy to publish your book.
Mhm.
Our publishing company is a socially conscious publishing company, and from every book that we publish, we take 10% of
Mhm.
those proceeds, and it goes into a scholarship fund. And that
Mm.
scholarship fund is for graduating seniors. We start off with
Oh.
$500 until we can
Mhm.
really build it up. So we start off $500 and we give those to these graduating seniors going into college to help
Mhm.
towards their books. And we will continue to offer them $500 as long as they continue to meet the requirements and that they
Mhm.
stay in college. They may
Nice.
get $500 their freshman year to go towards their
Mhm.
books. They might end up with 1,500 their sophomore year. It just
Right.
depends on the amount of business that comes into the company, and it also depends on how many partners we can bring in that are willing to
Right.
invest to see the vision.
Right.
I
Right.
lost my father in 1990.
I'm
So
sorry.
one of the scholarships is in his name, and
Oh.
it is specifically for African American males and males of color.
Okay.
My brother passed away January 21st of last year.
Mhm.
And so we have a scholarship in his name, and that scholarship is for
Mm.
anyone that meets our criteria. And
Mhm.
then in March of last year, I lost my oldest niece.
Mm.
And we have a scholarship in her name. This scholarship is specifically for individuals that have been in the system, are a foster child, or has
Mm.
been adopted, and they meet our criteria, then they get them. So every year we will add
Yeah.
3 scholarships to the 3 that we have. So we will be taking um, applications in at the end of the year this year, and we will
Okay.
be awarding them out to graduating seniors of 2023. And that'll be
Nice.
our first class of seniors that we will be granting the scholarships to.
What? So, how do you start a scholarship? Like, how did? Yeah.
Well, scholarships are basically kind of like nonprofits.
Mhm.
So it's just like you would start a nonprofit. You would develop your business plan, your strategic business plan of what you want to look like. You would create your board of directors.
Mhm.
And then with me, our board of directors, my mother had 12 grandchildren. My niece passed
Oh
away,
wow.
so she has 11 now. So those
Mm.
remaining 11 grandchildren are the ones that make up the board. I will always have the
Oh.
president's role. My mother is the
Mhm.
honorary president. And then our children, my siblings' children, all have a seat on that particular board. And then
Mhm.
they run the board. The only
Mm.
thing I have is a vote. I'm the If they get stuck and
Mm.
they can't seem to get it together, then I would step in with the vote. If I'm not available, then the vote goes to my mom.
Oh, okay.
So, but they run it. So they
Okay.
have the day to day running of it. I've developed the plan of action. They will implement it. And so
Mm.
I'm about legacy. You know, the
Right.
older you get, the more you want to make sure that there's legacy. So
Right.
this is our legacy. So my maiden name is Bledsoe. So
Mm.
I have named the publishing company Bledsoe Publishing Company
Mhm.
LLC, and all of the ones that came from my mom and dad are the ones that are involved in it. And so
Mm.
it's truly a family business in the
Mhm.
sense that I'm teaching them what I know. And
Yeah.
so even with the scholarship fund, we've done it in our family members' names so that we can be a blessing to our community and
Mhm.
building that legacy. So even after I'm off the scene,
Mhm.
their children can be sitting on the board giving out scholarships. And you never know, it may even be now we can pay for their whole college experience. You know,
Right.
it's about teaching them the importance of giving back. We give
Mhm.
our kids so much, but we
Mhm.
never require anything of them.
Right.
And
Right.
so this is my way of having them give back to the same community that has blessed us, because all of my mother's grandchildren are doing very well in life.
Good.
And so it's their turn to give back. Give back to
Yeah.
a generation that's coming up now. My
Mhm.
oldest grandson is graduating this year. And he was
Mm.
like, Mama, why didn't you have it done this year? I was like, God didn't give it to me. It wasn't a season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's just one of those things that I need them to understand. And even authors,
Mhm.
you know, I'm a Christian
Mhm.
and I believe in tithing.
Mhm. Mhm.
However, God told me not to tithe my business into the church. He wanted me to tithe my business into the community. And so
That makes
this is
sense.
how my business is tithing into the community. It's
Oh, I
through the
like that.
scholarship fund.
I love that. I love that. That is beautiful. And yeah, and it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. I love that. Here we are talking about everything else but your book.
Now we kind of talk about everything else but the book.
With the book. No, but I love it, and I definitely you got to keep me posted because I'm very interested in your the course in March.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, that and I love what you're doing with that scholarship. I never knew that's how you set up a scholarship. That it's just basically it's a nonprofit setup.
Mhm.
Good to know. So where did we start with your book? Well, tell us. I don't want to give away any good juicy details. So, but
It's the book is really transparency at its finest. Um, I
mm,
I really tell everything. There's nothing that
right,
I don't talk about that I experienced during that 4 months. And when people start reading the book, because it's also an audio book. So if you go on
right.
Audible and you read like
Oh,
the synopsis of it,
yes. Everybody needs
you'll
to go on
get a
audio.
good clear picture of what's
Yes,
about to happen in the book.
yes, yes. Amazing. Your audiobook is amazing, amazing. Yeah, everybody. You just got to just go hear the sample. You you will not be disappointed. You're gonna love
At
it.
all.
Yeah. Yes. It's awesome. I love it.
And
So.
so with that book, I learned the importance even more so, because people do things to us
Mhm.
and we walk around and we carry it and we never really forgive, or we'll do like we did when we were kids, when you and a
Mhm.
sibling or somebody was fighting and your
Yeah.
parents would say, now tell them you sorry. And you be like,
Mm.
sorry,
Yeah, sorry. You don't mean
knowing
it.
you ain't meant nothing.
You ain't sorry.
In the book, God really takes me through some journeys to get me
Mhm.
to that place of forgiveness and
Mhm.
walk it out. Because a
Mhm.
lot of times we say we forgive, but we hold parts of it in our hearts because we don't want to ever forget what you did to us. But the
Right.
one thing that we don't realize is that we have what's called sensory memory. I may
Mm.
forget what you did, but I'll never forget how you made me feel.
Right. Right.
That will
Yeah.
always stay with me. And
Yeah.
so, even in that, you have to give yourself permission to let that go, because it
Uh,
holds up space and it holds you hostage from the possibility of things happening in your life that could happen. But you got this little space in your heart that you are holding an ought against another individual, and God can't fill that space until you let it go.
Amen. That is
And
very
so
true.
that was probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned. And another lesson that I learned that I talk about in the book is that sometimes family, when they call themselves trying to help you, they're
Mhm.
actually hurting you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a sad truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I talk about in the book a scenario that went down where people call themselves helping me, but it
Mm.
was just their opportunity to take pot shots at me
Yeah. Yes.
under
Yes.
the guise of supposed to be concerned about me and wanting to help me.
Mhm. They're not.
But even in that, we have to learn how to forgive ourselves, because before we have hurt anybody else, we've hurt ourselves.
Mhm.
Before we've disappointed anybody else, we've disappointed ourselves. And so God takes me through this journey for about 18 months of where He begins
Mhm.
to show me how to forgive me, how to let it
Mhm.
go, so that He can
Mhm.
thereby fill me up. Because as long as that was in my heart, there was areas that were not accessible for Him.
Right. Wow. That's deep. That is deep. That is deep. That forgiveness is very, very powerful.
Yes.
Yeah, and that it's true what they say. It's for you, not for the other person. So
And that's
wow.
what we don't understand.
It's hard because you're angry and you're
Yeah.
hurt. Yeah. Yeah.
But this is the thing. I had somebody ask me, well, how did you do all that? I know you was mad.
Mhm.
And I was like, I wasn't mad. You mean to tell me they did all of that to you and you wasn't mad? I said, I
Mhm.
wasn't mad. Well, why wasn't you mad? Because this is how I live my life.
Mhm.
Dogs go mad. People
Mhm.
get angry.
It's true.
So I may have been angry, but the
Mhm.
word of God says that I can be angry and sin not.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so in that anger, I can either allow the anger to destroy me, or I can allow it to become the energy that propels me forward.
Right.
And so I chose to allow it to be the energy that propelled me forward. Because if I would have stayed in that mindset that I was in back then, if I would have never had my healing, my deliverance, walked through the rivers of forgiveness, and gave myself permission to grow past what everybody deemed me
Mhm.
as, and
Mhm.
because when everything fell out, they threw me away.
Yeah.
Well, we know we ain't going to see her for another 17, 20 years. They
They were
wrote
done
me
with you.
off,
Mhm.
but God didn't. And
Amen.
everything that happened was very public,
Mhm.
but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it had to be so public. I understand it on the other side of it now. It had
Mhm.
to be public because those same people that had wrote me off needed to see the miracle that He performed that opened those doors and let me walk through.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, because it goes all the way up to the pastor betrayed you
Yes,
also, right?
yeah. Yeah, he played a significant role. He was the reason why it became so public.
Wow. Wow.
And it took my family a very long time.
Mhm.
And some of them still don't trust him.
I wouldn't.
Some of them still don't trust him. But you know for yourself as well as I do. Sometimes we do things and then we say, I don't know why I did that. Why did I do that?
It's true.
I'm
You
not
know,
understanding why I did that.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and in the moment, might have made sense. But
Mhm.
when you go back and think about it, it's kind of like, now that was not a good move.
No.
I don't understand why I did that.
Well,
And
yeah, there's I think what people don't always understand is that the enemy is not an idiot. You know,
Nope.
he's been around for a minute. So, and he studied humans for way before you and I were ever even existed, you know?
Exactly.
So he knows how to push people's buttons, and that's why it's so important to have a relationship with God, so
Yes.
you can strengthen yourself against that. So the second you start getting angry, the second there's that moment where, okay, you know what, April, no, stop. Let's think about this. You just calm down and you think about the situation. You kind of pull yourself back, and then because if you pray and you know, like, you know what, okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna read my Bible, or for me, I will actually go listen to a minister preach
Hmm.
on the topic, or YouTube helps me a lot, and I will listen to that, or even music, and just stop and think and let it go, because put it in God's hands. And sometimes I had a friend years ago tell me, this is like one of the best advice I've ever been given. But I was dating this guy, and I was just me and him were just at each other's necks all the time, And she said, April, she goes, you can't argue about every little thing. She goes, some things just aren't worth it. She goes, you need to learn how to pick your arguments. And she goes, once you
Yes.
learn how to pick your arguments, you'll find out a lot of them aren't even worth it. And after that, it was just like this peace that came over me, and the argument stopped. He didn't change. I just stopped arguing about it until, you know what, I realized I'm done. I learned my lesson from this relationship and I moved on. But that's that's how it needs to be. You gotta think before you start jumping on the bandwagon.
A lot of times we act before we think.
Yeah.
One of the things that was paramount in my book, Walking on Water in My Stilettos, is the fact that I had to spend 4 months in the county jail
Yeah.
in order for God to prepare me for this, for what I'm doing today.
Right.
Sometimes we don't realize that sometimes we have to go through
Yeah.
in order to be prepared for what He has coming next. Because had I not gone through everything that I went through in 2012, I wouldn't be
Hmm.
where I am today.
Right.
I wouldn't be doing, there would not have been a book.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be working with authors. I wouldn't be publishing people's books. I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing today had what happened in 2012 not happened. And so
Right.
that season of change was my season of transformation. And just like a butterfly has to go through its process of transformation before it becomes a butterfly,
Mhm.
there is a process that it has to go through to evolve into the butterfly. And it's the
Mhm.
exact same thing that we have to go through in life. We have to evolve into who God created and destined and purposed for us to be. We don't
Mhm.
just get it right the first time. Because let's
Right.
face it, if we got it right the first time, then we wouldn't have to go through half the stuff we go through.
And life would be very boring. Very
Very boring.
boring.
No excitement whatsoever. But
No.
something you said brought this thought to bear. Before God created this earth for us to exist in,
Mhm.
this was the realm that Satan and the angels that were kicked out of heaven and lived at. This was where they existed in.
Mhm.
So we have literally come in
Mhm.
and taken over their space. Now, how many
Mhm.
people are going to let somebody come into their house and take over without a fight?
Yeah. 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 That. Wow. That's deep. That's deep
And
because
so we're
that
going
makes
to
a lot
deal
of
with it.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be a fight. Yeah. Yeah. They're trying to evict us.
All day, every day. Either you going to get on board with us or you got to go.
Exactly. Wow. Exactly. Exactly. That's what we're really dealing with. But I love this. I loved our conversation. I learned some stuff. I'm gonna be starting class in March again. I'm already in college, so I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but we're gonna do it. Yeah. So, what advice can you offer anyone going through a similar experience as you?
Number one, get a relationship with Christ. That
Yeah.
would be
Yep.
my top thing, if I didn't say anything else, get a relationship with Christ. Because Christ has a way of showing you yourself in a loving way that
Mhm.
forces you either to give up and run in the other direction or go
Mhm.
through your process of change. Because
Right.
when we go through that process of change, there's always something better on the other side of it.
Right. Right.
But you just have to go through the process.
Mhm.
And there is another side of through. You just got to go through the journey. And it's not about the experience, it's about the journey.
Mhm.
It's about
Mhm.
everything that you learned while you were on the journey. Because it's
Mhm.
all, when we write books, that's where we pull it from. I don't care if you're writing fiction, nonfiction, children's
Sure.
books, whatever, self-help books, it doesn't matter. You are always pulling from a life experience, something that
Mhm.
has happened that you are sharing.
Right.
And a lot of times we don't think about that, because I could
Mhm.
have very easily done this Stilettos book as a fiction book and
Right.
not made it my story, but gave you a character
Mhm.
and you walk this journey with this character. But
Mhm.
I got impressed upon me to tell my story so that people will begin to see
Mm.
what they need to do to go through their season of change. Because
Mhm.
the word of God tells us that we have to be renewed in our minds.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
renewal comes at a cost.
Mm.
You have to give up something in order to get it.
Mhm.
And so the question you have to ask yourself is, what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up those things that have held you hostage and bound to that life that doesn't serve you
Mhm.
in order to have something better? Or are
Right.
you so complacent in the space that you're in that you don't think you deserve anything better? That you don't
Mm.
think that you need to do anything better? That you know this, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. I know
Yeah.
what's going on over here. When I go
Mhm.
through a season of change, I don't know what that's going to look like.
Right.
And so a lot of people decide to stay in their insanity
Mhm.
because they're familiar with it.
Mhm.
Whereas if you go into the realm of where Christ is trying to take you to transform you into who he knows you have the capacity of becoming, then
Mhm.
you don't know what that looks like, because every day is going to be a new beginning. Every day
Yeah.
is going to be a new experience. Every day is going to open your eyes a little brighter to the things that you are capable of doing and being.
Mhm. That's true. That's true. That's some good, powerful advice too. So, how can viewers support aside from buying your book, the obvious? And I would recommend the audiobook. I I'm just gonna tell everybody, like, after you see this show, you need to go over, and I'm gonna leave the links. Just check out the audiobook. Just listen to the sample. You will not. You're gonna buy it. You're gonna buy it. But how else can authors support you? Support your work?
Um, at
I'm not
any
authors. I'm
time,
sorry.
huh?
Viewers, anybody. How can anybody support your work? I said, how can authors support you?
Well, authors or anybody,
Right.
you can always go over to michellepjones.com. All
Mhm.
of the services that we offer as a part of our coaching program are listed on there. If you know someone,
Mhm.
and this is the other thing, if you know someone who is ready to publish and you
Mhm.
want to be a blessing to them, contact
Mhm.
me.
Okay. Okay.
Contact me, because I have had people's friends pay for their publishing. I've
Mm.
had people that have bought into their vision and has paid for coaching.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, it's really about putting it out there. I'm going to say this and you'll understand why I'm saying it.
Mhm.
The days of you trying to do stuff by hook or crook, them
Mhm.
days is over.
Just
You've got
done. Oh
too
yeah.
many people out here that know how to do it right.
Mhm.
I have two coaches. I have a business coach and I have a publishing coach.
Mhm.
And I pay for their services.
Mhm. Mhm.
Anything worth having is worth paying for.
Paying for. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you believe that you are worth it, then invest in somebody who has already attained what you are trying to attain,
Yes. Yes. I agree.
because the investment is going to pay you back. You're going to make that back. You're
Mhm.
going to experience all of the blessings that are associated with you. And even with that, one of the things that I do with the authors that we talk a lot about transparency. I don't care what kind of
Mhm.
book that you're writing. At some point in time, you've got to be real with yourself, because,
Mhm.
as you know, if you are not real with yourself while you're going through your writing process, when it comes time to market it and do book signings, it will destroy you, because you're
Yeah.
not ready for the audience's response
Question.
and questions that are going to be thrown at you. And
Mhm.
so now you get destroyed because you didn't go through the transparency process and
Mhm.
allowed yourself to be healed and allowed the words to come out of you so that you can
Mhm.
release what's going on. So,
Wow.
work with and find the value. If you want to support me or anyone else that does what I do, recognize the value in what we do.
Mm.
Stop trying to come and this is the thing. You're going to give me the hookup.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Can I get the hookup?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I get the free 99 deal?
The free 99 deal. Yep.
I have
Yep.
paid my coaches and I have paid for the training to be who I am now. I
Mm.
have invested in Michelle enough so that I can be able to give quality service to the people that I work with.
Mhm.
Think of yourself in the same way, because you're worth it.
Right. I love that. I love that. So, how has your experience been so far with this author challenge? I think the author challenge part is on my side. It's a challenge, managing everybody.
Um, some days is easier than others.
Yeah, yeah,
But I'm a systems person.
yeah. Mhm,
So I have created a system to manage. So I
mhm,
know who's what, where, what I got to do with this one. One of the things that I teach in the tips training is have your checklist, whether it's an
mm,
online checklist or whether it's a
mhm.
paper checklist.
Yeah,
Have your checklist.
yeah.
Know where every author that you're working with is in the process.
Right,
If the
right.
book is out to the editor,
Yeah,
which editor are you using? When did
yeah.
you send it out? When is your expectation of getting it back?
Mhm.
Is it out for a cover? Who
Right.
did you send it to as a graphic artist? When did you send it? When do you expect it back?
Yeah.
Have these things, because what it does is it keeps you honest.
Mhm, mhm,
And
mhm,
then the other thing, have you a whiteboard
mhm. Yeah.
and put your stuff up on. If you've got clients that you're working with and
Mhm.
you know that they're up under, because at any given time I could have two classes going on at the same time, and
Mm.
I'll have up on the whiteboard, this is the class that's going on, these are the dates of the class, this is what weeks we're on. As we get through each week, I'm checking it off, saying we've done that week, this is when we got done. And if it was something I meant to share that I didn't get a chance to share, I'll write
Mhm.
it up there so that I can cover it the next time. So
Okay.
it's just about organizing yourself. And even when you're writing,
Mhm.
organize. Give
Mhm.
yourself permission just to write. When you're writing,
Mhm.
just write. Don't
Right.
try to self edit. Don't try to format. Don't try to ask
None of
yourself
that.
questions. Just write. Because when
Mhm.
you get done, you can always go back and clean
And
up
that's
anything you
yep.
need to clean up.
Yep.
But I'm a firm believer that you're whether you're typing it or whether I write everything out. So whether you're
Yeah.
typing it or writing it out, whatever instrument that you're using in order to get the words on the paper,
Mhm.
that is a divine relationship between you, that writing instrument, and that paper.
Mhm.
You are the vessel that God is sending that information through. So it's
Right.
flowing through you out to that paper.
Mhm. Mhm.
And as such, you got to honor it as such.
Mhm.
So give it its permission and its time to be heard. And
Mhm.
as you
Mhm.
write it out, then you got everything out and you don't have to go back and say, oh, well, I didn't write enough words. I need to
Right.
go write something else. You'll know when you're done because
Yeah.
that's when the inspiration will stop. That's
Yeah.
when there's no more feeding.
Yeah.
You'll know when you're done. You'll just be
Yeah.
done.
I love
So when you write, just write.
it. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show and thank you for being a part of the author challenge. I look forward to promoting your this video and your book and all that you have to offer. You have a lot to offer, especially authors. So they really need to pay attention to this. Watch it twice, three times. They say you got to watch something seven times. And I think this is something that's worth watching seven times because there's a lot of great knowledge for authors in here. So I want to thank you for being on here, and I look forward to getting to know you more throughout the years and throughout our whole the authorship. What do they call it? Your
I
author
think so.
career. Yeah. Yes, it was nice having you on.
Thank you for having me. I have enjoyed myself. I've enjoyed talking to you, April.
No, thank you. And you have a blessed day and stay safe and yeah, stay healthy.
That too. I'm doing my best on that part.
Good. All right. Have a great night.
You too.